Hello once again guys. In this video we will continue the DBMS project that we're working on, and we have already created ER diagram and then converted it to the relational models, and now we are going to actually implement our database management system with the help of structured query language, also known as SQL. So we will be using MySQL implementation. There are different versions, different implementations of this SQL standard, and one of the most popular one is MySQL, and we have already mentioned the reason for using MySQL. So I'll directly jump into the types of commands. Basically there are 4 or more than 4 types of commands, but in this project right now we will be using 2 of them, and they are data definition language, create, alter, truncate, drop, this kind of commands for creating table and all, and after that we will be using data manipulation language, where we will be inserting and updating, deleting and selecting our data. So let's continue. We will start by creating the department table, which was the first one in our list of entities. This is also the topmost one. One thing you have to take care of is if this table's attribute, if one of the attribute from this relation is being used as a foreign key in another relation, then you'll have to create this one first. For example, department ID will be used in our program table, so the department table should exist first before we can create program table. So this is query. I am not going to write down the queries one by one, as it will get very long. So I've just written the queries. I'll just show you 1 or 2 demonstration of how to write these things, how to include these things, and then we can continue with other tables. So for this one, for this department table, the creation process is very easy. I will assume that you have already installed XAMPP in your machine and you have created a database already. So this is the screen you would see if in PHPMyAdmin, if you have already created a database. I'll go to my database JMC and I'll go to this tab SQL. Here I can start writing all my queries. So for now I will just copy paste the query to create department table. I just copied it from the file I have saved the queries in, and here something to consider is this is auto increment. Department ID is auto increment. It's integer int, and it is not null, and it has auto increment attribute. That means the value will be incremented itself by adding 1 from like if it is the beginning, then the value will be 1 automatically. After that 2, 3 and 4 and so on, and this will be our primary key, and department name and HOD2 normal attributes. So here I am going to run this query by clicking on the go. So here you can see I have successfully created a table, department table, and you have to, I won't say you must, but it is good to include a screenshot of this in your project, so we know that you have created it successfully. You are not copying it from somewhere else. So for later usage also you can look into this query, and this can be helpful for you also. So you take a screenshot. I'll just show you a demo. I have taken a screenshot and I go to my pictures folder. It's a very simple step. I'll just crop this part, only this much, or depending on your choice you can crop it accordingly. And now this cropped image will be included in my document. Okay, so I have, if I go to the database, now I have a single table, department, and if I go to this table I see nothing because this table is empty as we have not entered any value yet. If I go to structure tab, then I can see this structure. So for this structure also you can take a screenshot and crop this much, or let's say this at least these attributes of this structure, and you can insert the screenshot in your project like I have done it here. Okay, so I just showed you these, how to take the screenshot of this and how to take a screenshot of this, and you have to write down the query. This is mandatory, you have to write down this query. You can either write it like this in this format, or you can also write in normal format without this formatting. For this formatting, for your information, I am using this particular website. I have saved the name here. This website here, if I go to this website, then you can paste your code here. For example, this is already formatted, but if you paste normal code also, we'll see in the next code. For example, this is for creating program, this code is for creating program, and this one I'll go to SQL tab, and I'll run this query. Click on go. I have created just for the introduction, this is a program table for query for program table, and these are the attributes that we already discussed, and department ID here is being used as the foreign key. This part is important here, that's why we created department table first. And click on go. Suppose my query is like this, my SQL query is like this, then I can go to this site, SQL Formatter, and I can paste it. I pasted my query here, and if I click on format SQL, it will give me the formatted queries like this. Okay, because it's very difficult to format it manually in this format, so you can also change the options here. I usually keep it unchanged, these options, and you can just try out. This is not mandatory, I'm just saying if you want to format your SQL queries in a more readable form, then you can use that. So for these are the things we did for department table. Same process we'll have to follow for program table. This is the query and these are the screenshots. If I just created the program table, and if I go to the program tables structure, I can see this structure here. This is the primary key, the yellow color key, and this is a foreign key, department. The gray color key is representing a foreign key. So after this, we'll have to, you just continue creating other tables. You can look into this query if needed, otherwise just as usual, something different here is this date attribute. Other attributes are very similar to the previous one, nothing unique here. Again same screenshots, and this table is a lecture works for department table, and here this table is slightly different than the usual tables because here we are using primary key, composite key. Primary key is lecturer ID and department ID. As we saw in the previous videos, this is a many-to-many relationship, and for many-to-many relationship between lecturer and department, we have created a separate table where lecturer ID and department ID both will be used as a composite key. So we have used it like this, and both are foreign keys. This is from lecturer table, this is from department table. So this table is slightly different than the usual ones. So have a look into this one once, and the usual screenshots. As you can see, there are two keys here. Similarly, for contact numbers, we created a separate table because otherwise it would violate first normal form. So here is lecturer ID and contact number, and for primary key we are using lecturer ID and contact number. These two are primary keys together, composite key, and lecturer ID is foreign key from the lecturer table. And the usual screenshots and so on for student table, student contact number table, and then comes the subject table. For subject table, and the usual screenshot, and lecture teaches. Also there are two separate tables here other than subject. One is lecturer teaches subject, which lecturer teaches which subject, that table. This is again a many-to-many relationship, and very similar to what we saw in the previous slide. For the many-to-many relationship, primary key is lecturer ID and subject ID, and both are foreign keys from the other tables. Same screenshot, and again program has subject, which program has which subject. One program can have multiple subjects, and that particular subject can be included in multiple programs. So again many-to-many relationship, and a separate table, and a composite key, program ID and subject ID. Usual screenshot, and these are our final tables. These are final tables, out of which these are our core entities, and the remaining are for relationships. And we will start the data insertion, inserting data into the table. Again, I will show you one example in PHPMyAdmin, others you can follow. So for department, I will copy this, insert into. Again, this query has been formatted using the same link that I showed you. I go to department table SQL tab, and here I can either write the query manually, or I can just paste it here and go this screenshot, take this screenshot, and then go to, you can go to SQL and write select asterisk from department, or you can just click on this table's name and you will be displayed, these values from department table. You can take a screenshot of this and attach it to your document. Okay, so this is the query, formatted query, and this is first screenshot of successfully inserting the tuples in the table, and I have inserted all at once. You can do one by one or all at once. And one more thing to notice is I have not used department ID here because that is auto increment value. It will be incremented by itself, and this is the output. If you do select asterisk from department, you will see this output. Obviously you will see many other things, but the crucial part is this one, this much. So I have included this in the screenshot. Same thing being repeated for program table. Okay, so these are a few programs, BBM, BBA, and belonging to different departments and other details. Screenshot of successfully entering the values, and screenshot of values if I do select asterisk from program. So this is the overall process. I don't think I need to show for each and every table. I hope you understood already. And one more thing is, for these values, for these dummy names, and I don't know if this is the problem only for me or for everybody. I struggle to think of new names in such situations. So I have used one fake name generator website, that is this one. So if you go to this website, it will show you a list of fake names. You can select male only, female only, or both male and female, and you can generate names, first names, last names. For this kind of project, even site like this can be useful. So I have used that site for the fake names here, and the same thing again. This is a screenshot of output. So you can follow these. For lecturer works department table, which lecturer ID and department ID. So lecturer ID 1 works in department ID 1, lecturer ID 2 also works in department ID 1, and so on. And this is the output. Okay, so this is for lecturers contact numbers. Lecturer ID 1's contact number is this, again 1's contact number is this, because being the multi-valued attribute, we have created a separate table and we are inserting values accordingly, and so on. You can just continue for other tables. I think it's very simple after this. So finally we will be writing the summary of the project, and this obviously you can you can write in your own language, your own stuff. So for this project, what I have written is, we have developed a DBMS system for this campus, and at first we identified the main entities, and we created ER model, and we mapped the ER model to relational model. This is our first step, and eventually we used technologies like MySQL, XAMPP, PHPMyAdmin to implement the actual DBMS, where we created 10 different tables in MySQL based on the relational model that was derived from ER model, and 5 belong to the entities, 5 were for managing the relationship among the entities. So after this, what I have written is, what is the use of this project, what we did, and what is the use. What we did is this part overall of what we did, and this is overview of what this project is for storing, managing, and updating the data of Janta Multiple Campus, and it will help them get rid of data duplication, inconsistency, and many other issues they were facing due to traditional use for storing data, traditional methods for storing data. And finally, I have written this. There are a few limitations to this project, as you might have already felt like it. This has some limitations like library management. There is no library management in our project. There is no fee or billing. There are no relations for these fee collection, billings, and all. There would be limitations like this, and you can just mention that in future we have planned to enhance the DBMS and include those features. So this much is the main content of your project, including the previous videos. And after this there are some cover files that you have to create before printing. So we'll talk about that in the next video.